Hello, welcome back to In the Kitchen with the Dietitian. This is Jane's Story. Today we are going to do another episode in my series on whole grains. We're going to talk about sorghum. Sorghum is considered an ancient grain and it is naturally gluten-free. In the United States, it is primarily used for ethanol production and animal feed. However, its popularity is growing in the food sector. As you can see by this picture, there are many varieties and colors of sorghum. Sorghum can be ground up into flour and used in baking products or eaten as a whole grain, as I will show you. Sorghum, like many other whole grains, contains phytochemicals, vitamins, minerals, healthy carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. There is no one grain that contains everything we need to function optimally, so variety is key. If sustainability is important to you, sorghum checks the box. It is drought tolerant and can be grown where other crops have failed. There is not an official definition for the term ancient grain. However, it typically means that its origins can be traced back to the beginning of time. More recently, it is used as a marketing term to get you to pay more for foods, and ironically, for foods that typically are cheaper to grow. I'm going to show you two ideas for cooking sorghum. This morning, I got up at about 8 o'clock and I stuck some sorghum in two different crock pots. One of them I partially cooked in milk and water, and the other one I cooked in chicken broth. We're gonna do a breakfast dish and we're gonna do a lunch/dinner dish. Cooking sorghum on low in your crock pot works best. Also, what I found out is not using all milk to do it. I was able to get by with 1 cup of water and 3/4 cup of milk for 2 servings of sorghum, which would be considered a half cup or 80 grams. With the broth version, I really had no trouble cooking that. I was able to cook that in the oven and in my pressure cooker, but I wanted to do it in a way that maybe we could do this overnight and have it ready for us in the morning. So that's why I chose on low in the crock pot. They both turned out good. However, the ones that I'm going to use in my examples are ones that I'm taking out of my freezer that I have already made ahead of time. I will take you over to the crock pot to show you what that product looked like at the end of cooking. As you can see here, I have the sorghum. This was 4 servings, 1 cup of sorghum or 160 grams and 3 cups of low sodium chicken broth. And that cooked up nicely and it holds its shape. As you can see, it's nice and round, has a chewy, nutty texture like I said. And this I turned off at noon, so they had 4 hours to cook, and it's just been absorbing the water. This one is still on low. This is my milk one, and I can probably turn it off now. I will not drain the milk in this because I do want to keep some of the protein in there. That's why I'm cooking it in milk. For my first dish, we're going to make a breakfast item. I have my bowl here. I have 1 serving of the sorghum that I showed you in the crock pot. This isn't the one from the crock pot, but this is one I made yesterday. Same thing, I made it with what would be equivalent to 6 tablespoons of milk and a half cup of water, so not quite a cup of liquid. Sorry, I broke it down into tablespoons, but I used 3/4 cup of milk, and in order to half that, it was not quite a half cup, but a little bit more than a 1/3 cup, so it was 6 tablespoons. And so I'm just gonna put this in the bowl. When I first made this, I did it kind of in a one big thing and then I topped it with the apples. This time I'm gonna do it as if we're making a breakfast bowl, where things are kind of grouped. You can do it however you like. I have a half cup of 2% Greek yogurt, but I put it in a scoop because I wanted to make sure I got a nice clean scoop of yogurt into my bowl. Just like that. And then what I'm gonna do is I have a 1/4 cup of pumpkin here out of the can, Libby's 100% pure pumpkin. Quick, I'm not trying to be political or anything here, but I do wanna mention the reason why I have Libby's is because I went, and I normally would buy Walmart brand pumpkin and or Aldi brand pumpkin. However, the last time I went and I looked, it was a product of China. And I'm from Central Illinois where there are many pumpkin farms. And I know that there's pumpkin grown in the United States. And so I want my pumpkin to come from the United States. So that's why I chose Libby's. It's a little bit more expensive than the other one, but I don't use pumpkin that often. So I have a 1/4 cup of that. I'm gonna put this in the bowl. I'm trying to stay away from doing sugar substitutes. I know some people don't like it and such, so I'm trying to avoid that. But I'm also trying to avoid added sugars because that's not good either. So what I'm doing here is to sweeten up the pumpkin, because pumpkin naturally is not very sweet. I could use butternut squash here, and that would have given me a little bit sweeter of a product, and I could have cubed it or mashed it and used it in this bowl. I'm gonna use this H-E-B applesauce that has butternut squash and apples in it together. Unfortunately, it is organic. I don't typically buy organic, like I say, unless it's the only thing that was available. This was the only thing that was available as far as this kind of flavoring in applesauce. Anyway, this applesauce is really good. It's also good when you mix it with yogurt if you buy unsweetened yogurt like the Faya stuff. So I'm just gonna mix it in with my pumpkin. And then I'm gonna add just a little bit of cinnamon to give it a little bit more pumpkin-y flavor. You could use pumpkin pie spice, you could use ginger, you could use nutmeg, whatever you prefer. Okay, and then I'm just gonna put that in my bowl here that I have. I have the equivalent of a 1/2 cup of apples, and that's about 55 grams. Okay, so this is what we got. And then last but not least, I have 2 tablespoons of walnuts. And I'm gonna put 1 tablespoon right there to kind of fill in that gap. And then I'm gonna put 1 tablespoon on the other side of my applesauce. And then I'm just gonna sprinkle a little bit more cinnamon on there. A nice little breakfast bowl. I'm trying to keep these meals simple. We're doing a bowl again for this dish. I'm thinking in terms of cooking time and things like that. We can cook the sorghum ahead of time. It's gonna take minutes to, maybe not even minutes, to cook down these greens. And we're gonna roast these tomatoes in my oven for 10 minutes. If you don't like roasted tomatoes, then you could just leave these raw. I love roasted tomatoes, so we're gonna roast them to put them in my bowl here. We will start with that so we can get those going. I have 5 ounces, so where I got 5 ounces, usually when you buy a thing of tomatoes, it is a 10-ounce little container, so I'm using half of that, so that's where the 5 ounces came from. I'm just gonna put the tomatoes on my tray. I'm gonna spray them with some cooking spray. And then I have several different seasonings here. I'm gonna use some onion herb, low sodium, or no salt actually. And then I'm gonna use some thyme. And I'm just sprinkling this on. You determine how much you wanna put on in your house. I have a little bit of coriander. And then I have a little bit of marjoram. I'm really watching the salt in this dish because the chicken broth that I used was only 33% less sodium, so it had quite a bit of sodium in it for a cup. And I'm using feta cheese, which is notoriously high in sodium. So we'll get enough seasoning from the actual cooked sorghum from that broth, and then the other seasonings that we add here to the greens and to the tomatoes. We're gonna stick these tomatoes in my little easy bake oven, I like to call it, for 10 minutes at about 400 degrees. I know I have this beautiful stove behind me, but I'm in Texas and it's really hot. And so I really don't like to heat my house up if I don't have to. So that's why I'm not using this behemoth of an oven behind me, but it looks really pretty. All right, so moving on. I have about 8 cups of greens. I know this looks like a lot, but we're gonna cook it down and it's gonna be just a very small amount when we're all done. I'm gonna take the greens and I'm just gonna roll them up and just kind of go through them like this. And get the other ones. I have 5 ounces of kale here in weight. Again, the reason why I chose 5 ounces is because when I was originally doing this recipe for a meal plan, I was using a 5-ounce container of greens. And so I just made it 5 ounces. I have red kale, Latino or dinosaur kale, and then I have large spinach leaves in here as well. That's what all of them look like. So I have red, the dinosaur, and the big spinach leaves. And then I'm just going to spray this down with some cooking spray, and I'm going to kind of toss it around to make sure that the bottom gets some too. And then when I get this all cooked down, I'm going to add some garlic to it just at the end. My garlic ready. I have 2 different tools for garlic pressing. I have just a regular press, and then I have one where you can just roll it back and forth. I'm just going to use this one. We have the greens here. You can see I'm just going to put these in the bottom. Put a little bit of spice over the top of this greens though, just to kind of give it a little bit more flavor. And these will be the same ones that I was showing you in the beginning on the tomatoes. Okay. I'll just kind of toss that around. Lots of greens, but you can see that what was 8 cups is now probably down to 2, maybe 3. We'll go ahead and add our roasted tomatoes. They turned out nice out of the oven. That's what that looks like. I have my serving of sorghum, and I cook that with 1 serving is 40 grams or roughly a 1/4 cup, with 3/4 of a cup of reduced sodium chicken broth, beef broth, vegetable broth, whatever kind of broth it is you want to put in there is fine. You can do water. The broth just kind of adds a little bit more flavor to it. And I'm just going to put this all kind of on the side here. And as you can see, there is quite a bit of sorghum here in this serving. It really swells up. But that is 1 serving. That was 40 grams dry. I have a 1/2 cup of sliced cucumbers. I used a little mini seedless cucumber, and I will just pile those up here in the middle. Okay. I have a 1/4 cup of no salt added garbanzo beans, and I will put those there. I have a 1 ounce of cooked chicken breast. This came right out of my freezer. It was already cooked. I just put it in my refrigerator to defrost overnight and dump that over here. We're getting protein from the beans, from the cheese, and from the chicken, and we are getting some protein from the greens as well. I have reduced fat feta cheese. This is from H-E-B here in Texas. I really like this one, so if you guys are listening to me and you are in Texas, I like this one because out of all the reduced fat versions of this feta cheese, this one's the lowest in sodium, although it is still somewhat high. It is at 340 milligrams for a 1/4 cup, which is what I have here, 1 serving. I'll put this over here in a pile. Oops, I left 1 cucumber in my bowl. All right, then all we have left is 1 tablespoon of pecans, and I'll just put those here. And then to dress it up, I have Skinny Girl balsamic vinaigrette. This only has 5 calories for 2 tablespoons. I don't typically like fat-free or almost calorie-free dressings, but this has a really good flavor to it. It's got a good vinegary flavor to it, but not too much of a bite. I have 2 tablespoons here. This is 1/8 of a cup, which is equal to 2 tablespoons. And I'm just going to drizzle that over the top. And then that gives us our sorghum bowl. So I've given you 2 options on how to incorporate sorghum into your daily meals. Hopefully one of these has inspired you and you will give it a try. Join me next time for In the Kitchen with the Dietitian.